My name is Samantha Goosen. This is my final presentation for my business communication course at Grand Rapids Community College. The title of my presentation is called The Value of Higher Education in the Modern Workforce. What I wanted to answer with this presentation and this project was, is the value of having a bachelor's degree worth the cost incurred from obtaining that bachelor's degree? Specifically, I was looking at bachelor's degrees. There are many fields out there that require a master's level or beyond that create a huge difference in income potential, namely doctors, lawyers, and others who make six figures or more in a year. Instead, I wanted to focus on bachelor's level, which is increasingly becoming more common with the workforce as graduation rates continue to increase. As graduation rates continue to increase, the amount of debt incurred also continues to increase. So I wanted to look at a couple participants and get their opinions on whether or not they felt that the cost of having or not having a bachelor's degree had affected their career or their decisions up to this point. So looking at the research, I wanted to see if there was a significant wage difference between those with or without, and what that meant to those who had decided to seek higher education and those who didn't. So looking at the cost, which is tuition, your debt, the 4 years or more that you might have been out of the workforce in which you were seeking to earn that degree, the income difference, if there was any barriers that people felt to stop them from pursuing education beyond high school, and what that meant for them. And also looking at the economy and how that has changed over time. We've talked about that in classes, about how we used to be manufacturing economy and now we're more of a service industry economy. And I found that especially interesting that with the service industry, bachelor's degrees can be required, but more often than not, experience is more valuable. So looking at the participants and if they agreed with that or if they had different opinions. So for the research side of this project, there were 10 participants who were asked 9 different questions. 2 questions that I felt were very important that you'll see on slide 3. Those are all yes or no questions, but the 2 that all 10 out of 10 answered yes were, are you employed? And did you graduate high school? I wanted to explain why those were important research questions for the participants of this study. One being that, already talking about the difference between a master's and a bachelor's income potential, I wanted to avoid having an income disparity between those who had not received a high school diploma or GED equivalent and those who had. So looking at that range of those who have either a bachelor's or a high school diploma or both. And those were the only participants that I wanted for the sake of this study. What I also wanted to look at, since income was a topic of this project, was those that were actually currently employed. Now with the recent pandemic, that may have changed. At the time of these questions, all 10 were employed. At the current moment, there are 2 that are currently unemployed. So as looking into how the economy affects employment and eligibility and potential debt and income differences, the economy is playing a huge factor right now with the global pandemic. So the research unfortunately does not take that into account, but it would be interesting to see how that changes in the future. So in addition to this primary source, I used secondary research to draft these questions and come up with these respondents. So question 1 was, did you graduate high school? Question 2 was asking, did you attend any college or university after high school? So many people will choose to attend, but not all will graduate. So 6 out of 10 did choose to attend any college or university. Question 3 was, did you graduate? And like I said, not everybody graduates, so 4 out of those 6 did end up graduating with a bachelor's degree. We already talked about question 4, which was, are you currently employed? Question 5, was cost a factor in your decision to attend or to not attend college? I thought personally this number would be higher. 7 respondents said yes, cost was a factor. Of those 3 who did not, 2 surprisingly said cost wasn't a factor because of their career decisions that they wanted to make. The careers that they wanted to go for did not require a bachelor's degree. So I thought that was an interesting result of this research. Number 6 was, do you feel there are barriers to advance in your workplace to those who do not have a degree? So in choosing the wording of this question, I would probably change the wording in a future research project simply because barriers can mean many, many things. In my mind, barriers had meant cost, transportation, or the like. Barriers to others may have been different, so my wording would have been slightly different on this because this response came back 50-50. And it was interesting that some with bachelor's degrees still felt there were barriers, and some without still felt there were barriers, and then there were both from either side that did not feel that there were barriers to those with bachelor's degrees. So again, an interesting result of this participation survey to look at for a future project. Question 7, which you'll find on slide 5, is how long has it been since you graduated college? So I asked this question specifically for the income potential the longer you've been outside of college, hopefully is going to increase over time. So we wanted to make sure I had a mix so that it wasn't skewed one way or the other with only recent graduates who may be in entry-level jobs or those who have been out of college for some time and may have already been promoted once or twice. So number 8 was debt incurred. So this was a statistic that I looked up, and on average $25,000 is the debt that someone will graduate with. Now there are statistics out there that say all over the board what it's going to cost to graduate. More likely than not, the average tuition cost is around that same amount. If you multiply that by 4 years, that's almost $100,000 that you could potentially graduate in debt from. Now most are going to obtain scholarships, financial aid, maybe their parents contribute to their college cost, or maybe they worked throughout college. There are many reasons why that $100,000 is not the average. But I found it interesting that for most of the participants, they were at least under $50,000 in debt, but one was above $50,000. This participant had completed his bachelor's, but had gone for it twice. So the first time around, he ended up dropping out from college and then returned to returned to the university to finish his degree, which is why he graduated with a little bit more debt than what was averaged. But for the most part, most were under the $50,000, even some were under the $20,000. Those with under 10 had either gone to just a year of college or less, or the second respondent had gone to esthetician school. So her costs were just a little bit less than some who had maybe gone to a traditional 4-year university. So I thought that was worth mentioning, that there is the difference there about how long you go to school, what type of school you go to, and obviously there are some universities that simply cost more than others, or you might incur more debt because of the time that you take to graduate. Finally, question 9, which was basically the idea behind this whole project, was looking at yearly income. And interestingly enough, the average was around under $50,000. A flaw with this research project would be that I wanted to decrease those ranges that I gave. So the first range was under $25,000, the next range was between $25,000 and $50,000, which after the fact I realized is quite a bit of a range since most participants responded with around $40,000 to $50,000, so I think that would have skewed the data slightly more. Interestingly enough, the two that responded that they were under $100,000, one does have a bachelor's and one does not. The median wage in Michigan is around $56,000. So according to the data, we are pretty right in the middle where we should be with that median wage. So the primary research supports the secondary research. So in conclusion, there is not a huge wage disparity that I found between those with a degree and those who do not. Now, the statistic may change the longer outside of college and universities you look. Those with bachelor degrees may have been given preference for promotions or increase in wages that those without have not. But what this research shows is that there wasn't a significant difference, and that those that do not have a degree have even incurred some debt and still don't have that degree to show for it. So interestingly enough, that debt may affect future asset purchases, such as a vehicle or a house or other ways that stimulate the economy. And what's also important is looking at retirement investments. Are those that have bachelor's degree more likely to participate in 401k contribution programs versus those that do not, because their companies may or may not offer it? So lots of different research that could come from this, but overall, looking at the answer to the question of what the value of a bachelor's degree is in the modern workforce, it's kind of a wash. And that is what I hypothesize would be the result coming into this project. I personally work in a field that those have degrees and some do not. Many are required to have degrees, but historically, experience has been more important than having a diploma. I'd be interested to see in the future if that continues to trend, or if the trend now becomes that people are seeking even higher education in the form of master's degree or PhD level degrees. Does anyone have any questions at this point? If not, thank you for listening to my presentation. Professor, thank you for this course. I learned quite a great deal and I appreciate learning from you and look forward to a possible class with you in the future. Have a great summer, everyone. Thank you.